This episode of The Reality Check is brought to you by HelloFresh. Forget takeout. HelloFresh delivers all the ingredients for delicious, healthy meals anyone can prepare at home in less than 30 minutes. And HelloFresh is giving our Canadian checkers 50% off their first order. Go to hellofresh.ca and use promo code REALITY50 to get 50% off your first order. That's hellofresh.ca, promo code REALITY50. This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the weekly Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. This is the show for June 27th, and I'm your host, Darren McKee. With me, as usual, are Adam Gardner.
What's up, Cuboids?
Christina Roach.
Hello.
And producer Pat.
Hi, everyone.
We have an interesting show for you today. Christina is going to explore the Matilda Effect. And then I am going to look into Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman salary. But first, is Anonymous right to believe that NASA is about to announce the discovery of aliens? Adam?
Great question, Darren. According to a video that's been posted to YouTube, Anonymous believes NASA is poised to announce discovery of aliens. Now, what does this mean?
What?
So for a bit of background on what Anonymous is, they're a loosely affiliated group of activists or hacktivists, mostly originated from the website 4chan. That's the drip tray at the bottom of the internet, and this started in around 2000.
The joke works every time you do it, Adam.
Thank you. Yeah, it's maybe the third time I use it. Shout out to Holden for giving me that one. The group, though often in some part agreeing on some purpose, is really a disjointed group of individuals with their own interests. One can no more say that Anonymous believes in a single thing than they could say that cats, skeptics, Democrats, or feminists agree on any one thing. It should also be mentioned that the YouTube channel this was uploaded to isn't even the main Anonymous YouTube channel, if you could even say that that was such a thing, as there's an Anonymous official YouTube channel which has more followers. Even the About link on the Anonymous Global YouTube channel, which posted the video in question, states, and I quote, "First and foremost, Anonymous is not a group or an organization or coherent collective of any sort. Anonymous is more like an idea, a concept," and then they go on talking about fluidity in the ocean and lovely things like this. So, let's get to the video. For something that's getting a lot of attention on social media and in the press, I saw it referenced by Joe Rogan on Twitter, it doesn't say anything convincing or substantial. It seems to be your standard conspiracy theory style video. And it's kind of cheap. Weighing in at a whopping 12 and a half minutes, it's basically a distorted text-to-speech voice talking about aliens set to video of a guy in a Guy Fawkes mask pretending to read notes, turning the same page over a bunch of times, and this is overlaid with footage of UFO sightings which aren't really visible given that the images are kind of mixed together. This is accompanied by your standard spooky music that you'd find in this kind of thing. It's obvious that text-to-speech is used by the cadence of the speaker, but also by the occasional errors, such as UFO once being pronounced UFO. This is kind of cheap, and I think, the uploader should have given the video a listen before publishing it to fix this up. One could say it's kind of cheap that they used text-to-speech, but this may have been a tool to try to disguise the voice of the poster. So I don't know if it was that the author wasn't comfortable with their presentation skills or that it was, a way to make it seem that much more kind of spooky. Now, this doesn't invalidate the video. I just want to give some context as to what we're dealing with and what everyone was, for some reason, taking seriously this week.
Everyone.
Did I say everyone?
Well, I don't know if everyone was taking this seriously.
A lot of people. Some people. A segment of the population was taking it seriously. No doubt this kind of thing is appealing to some people and these kind of videos are popular. The unsolved mysteries kind of video editing is very popular amongst people who like this kind of thing. So what are the claims in the video? Based only on the title and the fact that the articles about it are shared so much, I would have imagined that the insinuation was that Anonymous, known in part for hacking and having access to privileged information, somehow acquired information stating that NASA knows about aliens and was going to announce it. This is absolutely not what this is about. The main claims made aren't really about leaked documents at all, and it's more a discussion of what NASA is publicly up to and whether that might mean that they're close to something. Now, the video talks about many exoplanets that NASA has been finding thanks to this Kepler Space Observatory, and this is something we've talked about on the show with Dr. Stuart Robbins from the Exposing Pseudoastronomy podcast. The video quotes a Dr. Thomas Zubekin from NASA who states, and I quote, "Taking into account all of the different activities and missions that are specifically searching for evidence of alien life, we are on the verge of making one of the most profound, unprecedented discoveries in history." But this was publicly stated. There's nothing special to it. There's no scoop to the video. There's no reason to think that NASA knows anything specific when stating this. He was openly talking about the research that NASA is doing that we all know about. Now, the video goes on to talk about how NASA, through SETI, has plans to communicate with aliens or to disclose the existence of aliens to the public. But it doesn't suggest that they're making any progress, just that NASA would potentially be prepared should something occur. Many news organizations are covering this video. While they don't suggest that there's any legitimacy to the idea, they seem to always mention that NASA is closer than ever to finding alien life. Now, I'm not going to discount the progress that NASA has made in cataloging the universe, but either we will find aliens someday or we won't. And if we will, well, every day brings us closer, but we can't know with any certainty any one thing that NASA is doing is actually bringing us closer to that.
And as Adam said, though, we either will or we won't, so it's really 50-50 chance.
That is one way of looking at it.
No? Isn't that how math works?
Now, the video goes on to make more outlandish claims. Aliens have visited us. They talk about astronaut Brian O'Leary, who stated that there is evidence that we've been contacted. And I found a video from 2011 on YouTube stating the same thing. There's nothing new here. It goes on to talk about extra-dimensional beings whose ships phase in and out of our plane of existence. And the news sources that are talking about this video don't really talk about these more extreme statements, and I wonder if a lot of them really watched the video. It's not a great way to spend 12 and a half minutes, but you kind of have to do your homework. I feel as if most of these people that were covering it just parroted the same comments about NASA quotes, and they didn't really scratch beyond the surface. So some people went in depth and talked about Kepler and things like that, but they didn't talk about the rest of the video, and then all the other news agencies just kind of said the same thing. The IFL Science coverage of it even references the man presenting the video in full anonymous Guy Fawkes dress. Did this person not watch the video long enough to notice that these were looped clips from some other video accompanying really obvious text-to-speech? I'm not sure. So let's take a few seconds to check what the source is. So the video's description gives credit to the What They Don't Want You to Know channel on YouTube. So I quote this from that channel's description: "From exposing shocking secrets about humanity and our ancient technology to revealing the secrets about the alien races and other NASA files kept classified, we show you what they don't want you to know by providing you conspiracy documentaries, conspiracy news, and intriguing breaking news conspiracies."
I like how it's so blatant. Conspiracy news.
So videos on this channel include CERN has created a portal to an alien civilization, Anonymous, Trump will disclose age reversal, free energy, and quantum tech, Anonymous, ancient ruins and alien races found in Antarctica, and the Illuminati esoteric agenda exposed.
I'm happy that they're exposing the esoteric agenda because the obvious agenda gets too much coverage as it is.
Yeah, we all know about that one. Conspiracy videos are nothing new. They're popular, but most of them don't go viral like this latest one has, and there's really nothing to it that deserves this level of attention. NASA isn't poised to announce discovery of aliens. Anonymous isn't really an organized group of people. This is just some conspiracy theorist whose video went a bit viral and got picked up by a number of news agencies. Given some of the outlandish claims made by the video and the channel used as a source, we shouldn't give it more credence than a lot of the stuff which we generally are not inclined to give any attention to.
Now, on to the Matilda Effect. Christina, tell us about it.
I finally got a chance to watch the movie Hidden Figures on a flight home from Paris last week. Have you guys seen that flick yet?
No, but I've heard good things.
Oh, it's so good. Highly recommend. Hidden Figures is based on the story of a team of female African-American mathematicians, aka computers, who served a vital role in NASA during the early years of the U.S. space program. One of the main characters, Katherine Johnson, calculated the trajectories, launch windows, and emergency backup return paths for several flights from Project Mercury, the early NASA missions of John Glenn and Alan Shepard, and the 1969 Apollo 11 flight to the moon.
Wow.
She was so bright, she was accepted to college at age 14, and a couple of years ago, at age 96, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now, what surprised me most about this story, and I've heard other people say this too, is that I'd never heard about Catherine or any of these women's significant contributions until this movie came out. So that's pretty sad to say, but true. Now, when Johnson was asked in a recent interview for the LA Times, did you ever have to go toe-to-toe with the NASA engineers over the numbers? She replied, after a while, they learned to respect my answers because they were always correct.
That's great.
In a couple of scenes, Catherine is typing up technical papers with her calculations and boldly decides to cite her name alongside the lead engineers, who's played by Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory. When he sees her name next to his, he immediately rips the top page off the report and reminds her sharply that computers don't author papers.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, snap. Now, while watching the movie a second time with Pat, knowing I hadn't settled on a topic for this week's show, he suggested doing a segment about men who have historically taken credit for women's scientific achievements. And there's a lot of them, so here we go. Now, we've often talked about the challenges women who pursue STEM careers face on TRC in the past. For those who may not know, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. For much of history, women weren't even allowed to publish in scientific journals, let alone get funding for research. But even as this changed, female scientists were still being overlooked. And that's where the term the Matilda Effect comes in. It was coined in 1993 by science historian Margaret W. Rossiter. The Matilda Effect is a bias against acknowledging the achievements of women scientists whose work is often attributed to their male colleagues. Happens so much they needed a name for it, huh? Now, this effect was first described in the 1800s by suffragist Matilda Jocelyn Gage in her essay, Women as Inventor. The Matilda Effect is related to the Matthew Effect, which you guys may have heard of, whereby an eminent scientist often gets more credit than a comparatively unknown researcher, even if their work is similar or shared. Now, according to the Wiki, from an analysis of more than 1,000 research publications from the years 1991 to 2005, so more recently, it was shown that male scientists more often cite the publications of male authors than of female authors. In 2012, 2 female researchers from Radboud University in the Netherlands showed that the sex of professorship candidates influenced the evaluation made of them. Similar cases are described and corroborated by other studies.
Cristina, I assume this was some sort of ratio, because I assume there would be more male scientists that are publishing papers.
It's a good point, Darren. I'm not sure of the answer.
Okay.
So in the US, male scientists still receive more recognition and awards compared with women scientists, despite having similar achievements, although this is thankfully happening less in the 2000s than in the 1990s.
Go 2000s.
A neurobiologist at Stanford University Medical School named Ben Bars, who transitioned from female to male, has spoken out about his personal experiences and how his scientific achievements were perceived differently depending on his sex at the time. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, there's your control study in a way.
Yeah,
it's a so-called natural experiment where you can actually change the A to the B.
Yeah. So I thought I'd give you guys a couple of the more egregious and well-known examples of groundbreaking scientific discoveries where women got shafted out of the credit. Lisa Meitner, born in 1878, was an Austrian-Swedish physicist who worked on radioactivity and nuclear physics during the World War II era. She was the first to hypothesize nuclear fission. Working alongside a chemist named Otto Hahn, they led a small group of scientists who worked on experiments with uranium, but during the annexation of Austria into Nazi Germany, Meitner, who was Jewish, left Stockholm while Hahn and his partner Fritz Strassmann continued their work. When the male scientists were perplexed by how the uranium seemed to form atoms they thought were radium when bombarded with neutrons, it was Meitner who posed the theory that the atom may have broken down after bombardment into what was later realized to be barium. She also observed that no element larger than uranium existed naturally, and that the fission process, which splits the atomic nucleus of uranium into two smaller nuclei, had the potential of creating enormous amounts of energy. This process, of course, is the basis of nuclear weapons that were developed in the US during World War II and used against Japan in 1945. Now, this discovery had huge implications for the world of chemistry, but her role was severely downplayed by her male counterparts, who went on to win a Nobel Prize for their discovery in 1944 with no mention of Meitner. The prize committee later claimed this to be a mistake, but that's what happened at the time. While she didn't receive formal recognition for her discoveries, she did go on to be the first woman to become a full professor of physics in Germany and received many posthumous honors, including having chemical element 109, meitnerium, named in her honor in 1997, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Another famous example is astrophysicist Jocelyn Bell Burnell, who, inspired by her dad, began her work in astronomy, and in the late 60s, when she was a 24-year-old PhD student, began working under Anthony Hewish studying quasars. Now, she spotted an anomaly on a graph buried within 100 feet of printed data from a radio telescope. She noticed specific and constant signals were being given off by something in space. Her curiosity led to one of the most important discoveries in 20th century astronomy, the discovery of pulsars, which changed the way we see the universe, making the existence of black holes more plausible and lending further credence to Einstein's theory of gravity. Her observations were quickly acknowledged and published, with her thesis supervisor Hewish's name appearing before hers, even though he initially expressed skepticism of the anomaly and was insistent it was man-made and due to interference. So even though Bell Burnell made the discovery, Hewish later won the 1974 Nobel Prize in Physics, which he shared with astronomer Martin Ryle for his discovery of pulsars. She never received formal credit. It is well known and accepted that she was the first person to make this observation. Finally, I want to mention Rosalind Franklin, who is perhaps one of the most well-known and shameful examples of a researcher being wronged by her male colleagues. Franklin was a brilliant scientist who used X-rays to take a picture of DNA that would change biology. Franklin had a doctorate in physical chemistry from Cambridge, spent a few years in Paris Institute learning X-ray diffraction techniques, and then returned to King's College in England as a research associate at John Randall's lab, who's the physicist credited with inventing radar. It was there where she came to know Maurice Wilkins, who was the assistant director of the lab leading his own research group studying DNA structure. You guys may be familiar with the names Watson and Crick.
Mm-hmm.
No? So those are the two scientists credited for the discovery of DNA structure, or famously credited. So Watson and Crick were competing scientists, also trying to determine the structure of DNA, but at the time they were barking up the wrong tree. Franklin, however, had figured out that DNA consisted of a three-dimensional double helix structure confirming the shape with X-rays. When Watson and Crick visited King's College, Wilkins, without Franklin's knowledge or consent, shared with them the reports of her findings and the now famous X-ray image that Franklin took, which was a major key to understanding the double helix structure of DNA. Watson and Crick went on to use her findings as the basis of their DNA model, publishing a series of articles in the journal Nature in 1953, excluding her and even insisting she publish any of her findings after they did.
Wow.
Watson and Crick went on to win the 1962 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine and had their images plastered in biology textbooks, while Franklin's research was perceived as more of a confirmation of their work as opposed to it being her own discovery, which is very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Watson went on to publish a memoir in 1968 called The Double Helix, and he included this choice passage in describing Rosalind Franklin. By choice, she did not emphasize her feminine qualities. She was not unattractive and might have been quite stunning had she taken even a mild interest in clothes. It was quite easy to imagine her the product of an unsatisfied mother who unduly stressed the desirability of professional careers that could save bright girls from marriages to dull men.
Wow. Classy British wit right there.
Yeah. F you, James Watson. So these are just a couple of many, many, many examples of women who did not get the credit they deserve for their groundbreaking discoveries. And you'd hope things have changed significantly by now, but this is still happening. In 2015, a Harvard PhD student, Heather Sarsens, published a study that looked at the tenure process at top economics programs. She looked at 4 decades of records on over 500 tenure decisions at the top 30 economics schools in the country. What she found is that while men receive the same professional credit for solo-authored papers as for work done with a woman or another man, women were not properly credited for their work when they co-authored a paper with a male colleague. In the footnote of her study, she made sure to write, "This paper is intentionally solo-authored." So there you have it. It's actually pretty interesting when you dive into it. And if people want to check out the links at trcpodcast.com, there's a lot of great stories of women who've done some pretty amazing things in science.
Interestingly, leading up to you doing this segment, we talked about it a little bit, and I read an article, I think it was in The Atlantic, that had looked at a bunch of studies that suggest that based on the way women and men are raised, that kind of lead into this sort of thing. That
even some women might be their own worst enemy by not giving themselves proper...
Right. So the suggestion of the studies that they looked at were that women are far more cooperative, whereas men are more competitive.
Right.
And so women, especially when they have men in a group that they're working on, they tend to lay back on taking credit, which is the same when they're in a group of just women.
Right.
Now this could be the result of socialization, but that could just be a difference between men and women as well. It's going to lead to the same effect, and it's going to certainly lead to a potential unfairness where it would be better for women to sort of, I guess, stake their ground more or be more aggressive. But there are a lot of factors that could be playing into that.
I think this particular topic is several podcast segments in and of itself. Because we know there's systemic sexism, we know there's a genetic influence, and we know there's a socialization.
Yep.
And they all combine somehow to lead to this outcome. Speaking of women possibly not getting enough credit for their work, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman salary? Perhaps you've seen the wonderful and awesome movie that is Wonder Woman. Those are facts, by the way. As is that Gal Gadot is an excellent choice to play Wonder Woman. Another fact. Further, that is how you say her name, I believe. Now, there's some debate here whether it's Gal Gadot, Gal Gadot, Gal Gadot. I'm going to call her GG to be safe, but I think it's Gal Gadot.
And if you have issue with that, write in, but only one person can really take issue with it.
Perhaps you agree, as a reasonable person would, that surely Gal made some good money for her role, given that Wonder Woman has made a ton of money, far more than projected, and perhaps save the DC cinematic universe. I'm not sure about the last point myself. If so, you'd be shocked I say, to find out that she only made $300,000 for all that awesomeness.
Only?
This is exactly what headlines were saying last week, and what's more, supposedly, Henry Cavill, Man of Steel, made millions for being the Man of Steel. A movie that wasn't received as well as Wonder Woman at all. Is this sexism? Is this a British versus Israeli thing? What the hell is going on here?
He's British?
I'm just starting another internet rumor. No, he is British, but that's not the reason for this.
I had no idea. Good accent, bro.
At one point, Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman were all British. First, did Miss Gal Gadot really just make $300,000 for a movie that has made $650 million? 318 of which is domestic since its release on June 2nd. Now, in case you're wondering what those numbers mean, Vox quotes Box Office Mojo saying that the domestic number means it has beaten movies like Amazing Spider-Man 2012, Man of Steel 2013, Captain America Winter Soldier 2014, and Doctor Strange 2016. And it is close to passing other DC properties. It is also the biggest live-action movie in Hollywood history directed by a woman. Passing, you thought about it, Mamma Mia, a slightly different type of film.
Yeah.
So did she make this much money? Yes. Gigi also signed a 3-picture deal, this is quoting Vulture.com, that would pay her the same amount for Batman vs. Superman, Wonder Woman, and the upcoming Justice League movie. So her fee wasn't able to be renegotiated between each movie. When it comes to a franchise role of this caliber, the studio will often demand a signature on the dotted line before the actor even auditions. This test deal ensures that the performer who is eventually offered the role can't ask for more money after being deemed the top choice, and usually comes with sequel options already set out in advance. Quick story about John Hamm. Before he got the Madman role, he was driving there for the audition, his car was breaking down, and almost like all these auditions, apparently you sign the contract before the audition, so you can't renegotiate. And it really is, you have all these hopes and dreams, and then you don't get it or you do. And it worked out for him in that one case. For context, though, this $300K is aligned with other payouts in the industry. The Daily Dot has an article saying that Chris Evans earned $300,000 for Captain America, and Deadline reported in 2013 that some of the Avengers earned $200,000 for the Avengers movie due to their multi-picture contracts. Further, actors often receive a bonus if the film they're in makes a ton of money, which Gal most likely has by now. Further again, Gal hasn't yet signed up for a sequel to Wonder Woman, so I imagine there'll be some payback there.
So basically the 3-movie deal is Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League.
Yep.
And then she can bleed them dry.
Well, yeah, she hasn't signed up for Wonder Woman 2 yet.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Now, for context, Robert Downey Jr. made about $500,000 for Iron Man and around $50 million for the first Avengers movie.
Wow.
Now, making 100 times more money seems like a good deal. It's even better when you're starting with $500,000.
Yes.
Quick story about Jim Carrey. After one of his big movies popped, I think it was Ace Ventura, he wanted $500,000 instead of $300,000 for, I think at that point it was Dumb and Dumber, because the mask had already been done.
Okay.
And they said no. A week went by, and they're like, okay, we'll give you the 5. He's like, no, now it's 9. It's like, no, we'll wait it out. And because every week the movie just kept doing better and better. And so they could have had him for 3, and then eventually it went into like $10 million because they waited.
Huh.
Funny how that goes. But what about Cavill's millions? MSN does some nice sleuthing and traces things back to Laura Duca, a columnist at Teen Vogue. Teen Vogue is actually pretty good lately, who tweeted the following, now deleted, sentiment. Gal Gadot made $300,000 for Wonder Woman as compared to Henry Cavill's $14 million for Man of Steel. The most compelling DC villain is the pay gap. Oh, burn! And that sick burn was retweeted about 15,000 times.
Wow.
But it is very unlikely to be true. Aw, facts.
Right.
Ruin everything. MSN cites Vanity Fair saying that, quote, a source with knowledge of studio negotiations on franchise films said that it would be, quote, insane for a studio to pay Cavill that much. As well, the original source for Duca's tweet was an Elle piece, which has been subsequently changed, that cited a Forbes piece, which itself cited a website called The Richest that tells you a celeb's net worth, but doesn't provide any data of how they got there. Yeah. It's like, oh, he had a watch and he did this thing. He's worth millions. Yeah. The consensus seems to be that Cavill was likely paid something very similar to Gal. Duca deleted her tweet, but still thought making so little off a movie making so much money seemed absurd. Now, this is where, like, isn't this all kind of absurd? That a movie can cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make and make hundreds of millions more, and people who are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions isn't enough? That's a discussion for the panel about the nature of entertainment and how our society functions. But all that to say, Gal seems to have been appropriately compensated given the industry standard, and she's probably going to make a heck of a lot more money for Wonder Woman 2. As well she should.
I mean, this is no different than sports, right? You get someone on a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract, and they turn out to be an absolute superstar, and they're locked into the contract. And then at the end of the 5 years, they can ask for whatever they want. That's
right.
What
and there is you didn't have to sign that contract. Yeah. You didn't have to be Wonder Woman. You could have tried to hold out, and then someone else would have been Wonder Woman.
And I've been hearing about these 3-movie deals forever. I mean, Disney's been doing them for a long time. That's why you often see someone in a Disney movie, and they'll do 2 more. You know, someone comes out of a Disney show, and then it's like, oh, they're a really big deal, and they're doing whatever they can. But then they do 3 Disney movies before they move on because Disney's got them with the contract.
Exactly. I think Chris Evans had 8 or 9 pictures that he said he had to do with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us once again. Adam showed us why it's good to be very careful of any videos you see on the internet with their spooky music, looped, low-quality information. If there was a big release from NASA about aliens coming, we'll just wait for NASA to say it. Cristina did an excellent segment on the Matilda Effect, showing that women have been discriminated against throughout scientific discoveries, and it probably still happens to this day. It's important to be aware of the contributions of everyone who's been involved in great scientific discoveries, so please go to our website, trcpodcast.com, to follow links and learn more.
It's a great website.
And finally, Wonder Woman's a great movie, and Gal Gadot seemingly was appropriately paid for it in the world of people who paid a lot of money to make great movies.
Darren, before you sign us out, I just wanted to mention that the People's Choice Podcast Awards are coming around again this year. Nominations start on July 1st. We would really love it if you nominated us in the science category. This year, they're not going to have actual voting by the public. It's going to be sort of a peer-reviewed thing. So if you nominate us, the rest takes care of itself. And we'd really appreciate your nomination. Podcastawards.com.
Give us a click, please. And until next time, think better to act better.
Peace out, cuboids.
Stay classy, not smartassy.
Good night, everyone.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Outtakes.
Vulture.com has a nice long quote here. It starts with Gadot. Damn it.
Do it, Dan. Yeah.